You're not imagining it. Your coworker is difficult. Your manager really does micromanage everything, and your teammate is smiling while they subtly undermine you. And while it may feel validating to complain to a friend or scroll job listings on your lunch break, the truth is that difficult people at work don't just test your patience. They hijack your focus, they erode your emotional bandwidth, and over time, impact your job performance and really your overall well being. So, today, we're talking about how to deal with difficult people at work without losing your mind or your job. We're going to go into the research that, really showing why people behave this way. And most importantly, my 5 steps for what you can do about it. So stay tuned. Welcome to Workplace Therapy with Dr. Abby Medcalf. It's episode 1. If you haven't been checking out my Relationships Made Easy podcast yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. We're in our 8th season over there. Millions of downloads, 190 countries now. I don't even know how many countries anymore. And I'm really hoping Workplace Therapy has the same success. These are going to be shorter videos. They're going to be really to the point with a quick tip and a little explanation and a perfectly zeroed in download for you to continue to do the work and really integrate what you learn in every video. The download for today I'm calling the Difficult People Survival Guide. It's really quick scripts and grounding tools to keep you cool at work. Think of it that way. So let's talk about first understanding the behavior. What the research shows. We'll just get into it. So because before we talk about what to do, it's important to understand what you're actually dealing with, just in a brief way. And most difficult workplace behavior, I believe, after my 40 years now of doing this, most behavior falls into a few familiar categories, okay? There's the bulldozer, that person that dominates the meetings, steamrolls other people, right? There's the victim, the one that's constantly complaining but never taking responsibility. Over on the right side of the conference table, you have your passive aggressive, right? They are agreeing publicly but undermining privately. There's always a know-it-all at every workplace, every organization, someone who's, they reject all the feedback and they insist on being right. And there's usually who I call the ghost, and it's someone who is avoiding communication, avoiding any kind of conflict. They disappear when you need them most. They're the person that they're complaining with you about the boss, and then you're like, okay, will you back me up? And you go speak to someone or say something in a meeting, and they ghost you. They're just not there. They're not saying anything. And the research shows that people who consistently create some kind of conflict in the workplace usually score lower on measures of emotional intelligence, particularly when it comes to self-awareness and their emotional regulation. Other studies suggest that narcissistic traits, unaddressed burnout, and poor coping skills are also kind of common contributors when we're talking about all the problems at work. And by the way, every time I mention the research says or a link to something else, everything can be found on my website at abbymedcalf.com when you look up this episode. Or if you're watching me on YouTube, you can find everything below the video. So here's the most important thing to remember. Their behavior is about them, not you. And that perspective matters because it helps you stop taking things so personally so you can start responding strategically. You can act, not react. Okay. And here are my 5 steps. It's my 5-step framework to do just that. So step one, you have to reframe the threat. When someone's behavior feels hostile or threatening, your brain kicks into survival mode and your amygdala takes over, which pushes you into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. I spoke about fawn on the Relationships Made Easy podcast. I did a whole episode on it. Fawning is basically people pleasing, like on a crazy level, like really, so when you're feeling stressed, you respond by trying to please others. But again, or fight, flight, or freeze. And when you respond in any of these ways from your amygdala like that, it makes it difficult to access the part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, responsible for thoughtful decision making. And the research shows that even a small cognitive shift, it's not shift, it's shift. Even a really small cognitive shift can help you deactivate, for lack of a better term, that sort of alarm system. The alarm of the amygdala being so hypervigilant. So I tell my clients to try some, like an internal reframe, right? A rethink, a reframe. So my favorite one is something like, this isn't about me. This person is struggling to manage their own emotions, and they're trying to hand that emotional burden to me, and I don't need to take it. Okay, so anything that's like that. And again, it's a subtle shift, but it will help you stay grounded. And what's most important is it gives your prefrontal cortex, again, that part of your brain responsible for problem solving and reasoning and planning, it gives it space to come back online. Okay, step 2, don't feed the fire. Many difficult people feed off your emotional response. That spike in your tone, that frustrated email you sent, the sarcastic remark in the meeting, all those reactions can actually reinforce their behavior. I'm going to say that again. When you're doing those things, it reinforces their behavior and really creates more conflict. And because it's happened before. So instead, I want you to stay calm and neutral. Let them escalate on their own. Let them have it. I talk a lot about how I want you to feel like, a policeman or police person, woman giving a ticket. Like if you're speeding, a speeding ticket, they don't come to your window and go, what are you doing? Why are, they're not emotional about it, right? They're not screaming, why are you speeding on my road? They don't take it personally. They hand you the ticket, and then you have to go deal with the consequences of that. I want you to feel the same. You also want to avoid gossip. I know venting can feel very cathartic and really good, but the research shows it actually increases your stress levels and really contributes to a toxic work culture that you're trying to stop. So you're part of the problem when you're gossiping, okay? The other thing I'll tell you to do is not to withdraw. So don't withdraw from important communication. I know avoidance can feel safer, but it really creates resentment. It creates confusion. It's not the way you want to go. And so a technique I like to use here from DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, that really can be especially effective, is something called gray rocking. It's a strategy where you intentionally become less reactive and more neutral, less emotionally engaging. You're not cold, but you're not entertaining the drama either. You're basically practicing what Buddhists would call non-attachment, okay? That's what you're doing. You're sort of acting like a gray rock, right? You're there, people can see you, but there's not anything really going on. And what it does is make you really less interesting to the other person. Again, there's research on this, which means they'll be quicker to turn their attention to someone they can engage in their drama, and they're going to leave you alone quicker and hopefully in the future. Step 3 is you need to use your personal rules. I'm going to say the word boundaries, even though boundaries are slightly different than this, but using your personal boundaries you want to use them as a tool, not a weapon, but a tool. A boundary, a rule that you put out there is not punishment. It's a limit you set to protect your time, to protect your energy, and your mental health. And in a work environment, that means being clear and being consistent without being combative. So again, a boundary, the thing that changes a rule and a boundary, what the difference is that a boundary always has what I call teeth. It has something you'll do if the other person doesn't do the thing you're asking. So, please, you're going to need to lower your voice. I'm not okay with you raising your voice. And if you keep doing it, I'm going to leave the meeting, hang up the phone, stop the Zoom call, whatever. And so there's teeth there, right? There's something you're going to do, and then you have to follow through. So I'm using the term boundary here, even though some of these phrases I'm going to give you really don't have the teeth part. So think of it as your personal rules. So you can say things like, I've said this before, like, hey, I'm happy to revisit this, but I'll need at least 24 hours notice next time, right? I'm letting them know. Or in the future, and then the boundary could be, or I won't be working on this project anymore with you, or whatever, right? Like, or what you'll do. Those meetings that someone is just going on and on. I sometimes I'll say something, or I tell my clients to, let's stick to the agenda so we can finish on time. And again, you could have teeth there and say, we need to stick to the agenda and finish on time because I'm leaving it. I have to leave at noon. I have to leave whatever time this was over. So again, you're making it really clear that what you'll do if that doesn't happen. I respond to emails during working hours is also a great thing to say. That's very clear. Any boundary you have, any rule you put out there about yourself should be direct, calm, delivered without emotional charge. It's not an invitation to argue or justify or explain yourself. It's a simple clarification of what works for you and what you will and won't accept. Again, and I did an entire episode about boundaries at work on my Relationships Made Easy podcast. You might want to check it out if boundaries are a big issue for you at work. I'm sure I'll do that in the future here on this podcast also. But in the meantime, if you're in a rush, I also have a book called Boundaries Made Easy, and there's an entire chapter in there about it. So there you go. Step 4 is document everything. If a coworker's behavior crosses a professional line, and that could include disrespect, harassment, sabotage, whatever, start documenting. You don't need to announce it, by the way. You don't have to tell everybody you're doing it. You just need a record. And you want to keep very close track of dates and times, what was said or done, who was present, if there was anyone else there, and definitely save any emails or screenshot any conversations. And the trick with this is you have to keep them together in a folder somewhere on your computer. This way you can access them easily if needed, because I'll tell you, I've seen people take the screenshots and save the documents, whatever, and then the time comes to really put things together and they can't find everything. They're like, I know there's more, I don't know where it is. Hundreds of times I've sat with people with that. And so I tell you this, I'll say it again, You can even have a folder in your email program that, has their name on it, and you just throw things in there every time you get an email. But again, I would keep a folder somewhere on your desktop or something very easily accessible, or on Dropbox or wherever, where you put things right when they happen. That way and if you just are documenting something and writing that down, keep that document, the timing, the dates and times, keep that, any running list you have, again, in that folder. I'm telling you right now, you're going to need it. So the research shows that workplace bullying and harassment it's the reason I'm saying all this, are really difficult to address without detailed documentation. Again, there's research on this, so that's why I'm pushing this point so hard. You're not being paranoid, you're being prepared. So I'll also say that, you might document and then come back later when you're not triggered in a moment and see that something isn't as big a deal as you thought, right? So again, no matter what, documenting is generally really very helpful. All right. And then step 5 is to know when it's yours to solve. You can communicate clearly. You can hold respectful boundaries and respond with maturity and do all the right things. And the situation may still remain crappy. Nothing might improve. You can do everything right and nothing might improve. Some people just, they simply aren't capable of working in a collaborative or emotionally intelligent way. So if you've made repeated efforts and are still feeling drained, anxious, undervalued, whatever, it's likely time to escalate the issue, or maybe even explore a transfer, a job change, something like that. Again, whenever you're having trouble with someone, I'd like you to do that communication directly. I can do a future episode on how to do that well. If you'd like that, please comment under the video or send an email or let me know. I would love that. That'd be great, if you want it. But it, it, you have to start, taking responsibility and having those direct conversations. Okay, that's my point there. And if you don't want to, that's fine. But what happens when you go straight to a manager with a complaint, or if you're gossiping and doing all that, you become part of the problem. And I don't want that to happen when you're dealing with someone who's difficult. I want you to feel like you are separate from that. So first things first is to say things directly to them, and then escalate it if it keeps going on. If you've done all the right things and nothing is changing. And staying in a miserable job doesn't make you strong. Sometimes the strongest move is stepping away somehow. So I do want to say that. So I want to wrap up with, my final thoughts are that, I don't want to say, difficult people at work, it's a reality. They're a reality. Losing your peace of mind because of difficult people at work doesn't have to be. You're not responsible for other people's emotional immaturity, but you are responsible for how you respond. And that's where your real power lies. You want to stay in your lane. You want to protect your energy. You want to use tools like these that are grounded in research and psychology. But I do want you to remember, you don't need to fix difficult people. It's not your job. You just need to stop letting them interrupt your focus, steal your joy, hold your well-being hostage. That's the stuff that has to change. So at the end of every episode, I'm going to have putting today's lesson into action. Okay. So because again, you might have listened to all this and be done now, but if you want to put today's lesson into a more concrete action, I, again, created the Difficult People Survival Guide, quick scripts and grounding tools, right? So I think there's 5 go-to scripts in there. There's 3 or 4 in-the-moment grounding tools, what to say when you're caught off guard in a meeting or cornered in the break room. I've got a lot of good stuff in there. So I highly recommend you download it. And I'm always completely transparent when you download anything from me, whatever that is. The Mindfulness Starter Kit, which is free, on the website, whatever you might download from me, anything like this, you are going to automatically be put on my email list. And let me tell you what that is. Twice a month, you will receive a love letter from me. I call these love bites because it's just 2 little, you'll get 2 little emails with, it's like a story. I tell a little story, or I give you a tool, something meant to inspire you. I do not sell you anything. I do not bombard you with 50 emails. I hate that. I would never do it to you. So twice a month, you'll be getting something meant to inspire and motivate you to live a happier and more satisfied life. Again, I'm not selling. It is only meant to help. And if you don't like it, you are welcome to unsubscribe and still keep whatever you downloaded. So, and if you download more than one thing, if you download things over and over, you're only on the email list once. So don't worry about that. But I'll tell you that there's tens of thousands of people on there, and they really love, in general, really love the love letters. They're from my heart, meant to help. Okay. That is it for today. Thank you for staying with me if you're still here to the end. I'd love it if you followed me over on Substack. We do a lot of great work there. I also post the corresponding blog to all these episodes over there, as well as to my Relationships Made Easy podcast. And I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'm excited to get this going, and I'll see you next week.